also took a look this week at the transition pictures for Amelia Earhart, who was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic and who died at the age of 39 in 1937 trying to circumnavigate the globe. I think she made it something like 22,000 miles and was on the final leg flying out of New Guinea when her plane disappeared. Apparently there was some kind of discrepancy over her route and she got lost and ran out of fuel, maybe. Nobody really knows. It's remained a mystery all these decades. And many people said, would you please do transition pictures? Well, the problem was every time I went into her energy to do her transition pictures, I got a kind of no. And the no usually takes the form of no pictures. If I get no pictures, I am assuming that the person doesn't want their transition done for whatever reason. Albert Einstein was like that. And Helen Keller and Gandhi. Now, I thought they were just simply saying no. But now I'm starting to think that maybe they have lessons for us, but we weren't ready to hear them at the particular time I was trying to do the pictures. So it wasn't a no, it was just a no, come back later. This was not true of Amelia Earhart. Because when I went into her energy this time, she was just suspended. There was nothing happening at all. I began to think that maybe she was just in stasis under water. Because there was a movement above her, dark shadows. And maybe the plane had enough air in it, oxygen in it, not to have it sink immediately. It was in the water, but it was below the surface a certain number of feet, which is terrifying. Because people are overhead, maybe looking for you, or there are boats going by, and there's nothing you can do. No way of getting out. As I looked over to the left, there was a massive, it looked like the jaws of a whale. It was black, but it was like the jaws of a whale coming at me rapidly. Now, it's not unthinkable that she was eaten, swallowed by a sea creature. But it could also be that this was simply death arriving very, very quickly. Oxygen runs out, you're done. And it felt like a sucking motion, like a vacuum cleaner, just pulled her in to the darkness, and she slithered down this little tunnel and was spat out into that familiar cave. It was actually less like a cave, it was more like a bowl of some kind, but I drew it as a cave. And she just landed there, and that was it. She didn't have a concept of death in the same way that other people did. She was very confused and uncertain about what death entailed. It was like, okay, so this has happened. It's very unfortunate. Now, what's the way out? Let's see. I think I'll go up here. And she chose the tunnel because that's all there was, actually. But as she tried to climb the tunnel with a view to leaving this place, just finding an escape route and going, as she climbed, all these logs rolled down towards her. And she scrambled over them, a bit like Lara Croft in the video game, but scrambled over this obstacle that just kept coming and coming and coming. Struggle, 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 struggle. It was like the universe was saying to her, calm down. Get a grip. She was very gung-ho. Everything was about moving forward, having an adventure, trying this, escaping that. And the universe said, just calm down. By the time she reached the top, she was exhausted, but also, I thought, very centered. It's like, oh, that effort of overcoming all those logs, thousands of them, has forced me to be at peace and quiet. It's taken away all my gung-ho energy. And she stood before the light. And again, I was just confused looking at it. It's like, what is this? What? This isn't an exit. I don't know what's going on. Will somebody please explain? But it gradually dawned on her. It wasn't an adventure like you have on Earth. This was the ultimate adventure. And the moment the sense of adventure and the unknown filled her head, metaphorically, she became imbued with the idea of exploring that. Like, the ultimate adventure. That gung-ho nature was a real primal force in her makeup, clearly. And once she got to this position, she simply stepped into the light and was gone. So that was that. I would say she got trapped in her aircraft originally as it sank, ran out of air, and then drowned. Interestingly, though, she was not alone in the plane that crashed in July 1937. She had a navigator, Fred Noonan. He had been a sailor for the longest time, and a very good one at that. He kind of distinguished himself as an expert navigator, a skill he then transferred over to flying aircraft. In fact, he trained commercial pilots in the field of navigation. So he was the perfect guy to fly around the world with Amelia Earhart. He went down with her, and I thought, if I did his, not necessarily transition pictures, but his crossover pictures, wouldn't we get a good idea about what happened to Amelia Earhart? It might back up those pictures. So when I went into his energy based on this photograph, he also was suspended, suggesting the ocean again. The plane went underneath the surface and then hung there for a while. But he was upside down. And as he stayed upside down for a little while, he looked into the depths of, I assume, the ocean. And it was getting blacker and blacker and blacker and blacker. And it was coming at him really, really fast. Death wrapped around him like a blanket and smothered him. He couldn't breathe, he couldn't see anything. And then suddenly I felt a kind of mini explosion, and I was spewed out of this blanket into that metaphorical cave I always see. Spluttering in a pool of water. And the blanket deflated around me. On a balance, I would say they both drowned. He drowned first, but death was really quick once the oxygen ran out. Many viewers have said, when people die together, do they transition together? And my answer has always been no, because everybody has their own soul's path and their own ego lessons to learn and so on. But this really confirms it. They died in the same aircraft, and no, they had completely different sets of transition pictures. But I thought that was very, very interesting. And that, I believe, is what happened to Amelia Earhart.